Parallel eyes. The rain in Seoul that night fell in fine, relentless sheets, slicking the streets into glistening mirrors that distorted the city's lights. G.A. Young stood under the dim glow of a street lamp outside the Seoul Central Library, clutching her coat tighter around her. She had been there for hours, long after the regular readers had left, long after the staff began giving her curious, even wary, glances. Her reason for being there wasn't the Eun-woo case files. Not tonight. She had already memorized every report, every grainy CCTV still, every conflicting witness statement. She could recite the timeline like a prayer, and like a prayer, offered comfort without giving answers. No, tonight she was chasing something else. Something that had been nagging her since she'd overheard the prosecutors slip during last week's recess. We've done this before. For words. Careless, almost smug. They should have meant nothing. But G.A. Young had learned in the last few months that the most dangerous truths hid in what people dismissed. The archive smelled of paper and dust, sharp, dry, and a little like forgotten time. She slid another box toward her on the long oak table, fingers brushing over yellowed folders labeled in precise, bureaucratic handwriting. Case 87-0421. She opened it, expecting some minor fraud or theft charge from decades ago. Instead, the first page made her go still. Defendant, Kim Jae-min. Charges, murder in the second degree. Location, Sinsadong apartment complex. Date, April 21st, 1987. She skimmed further and froze. The prosecution's case rested on a witness who saw the defendant leaving the scene. The murder weapon, a kitchen knife, had Jae-min's fingerprints. There was motive, an alleged fight over money. It was the same structure as Eun-woo's case, not just similar, almost identical. The kicker? The defense had claimed the fingerprints were planted, that the witness was unreliable, that the timeline didn't match. Jae-min was convicted. 25 years in prison. G.A. Young's pen scratched furiously across her notebook. Every page she read was a mirror to what she'd seen happen to Eun-woo in court, just with different names and dates. She found the testimony transcripts. The witness in the 87 case was a man named Oh Dae-sik. Vague statements. Contradictory details about the defendant's clothes. And still, the jury believed him. There was no direct CCTV back then, but there had been security guards. They testified seeing Jae-min looking agitated in the lobby. No one questioned it. Jae Young shut the folder, her heart pounding. She thought of the prosecutor's smugness. We've done this before. Was Eun-woo just the latest pawn in a script they perfected decades ago? She left the library with the folder's contents burned into her mind. The night air was cold, and the rain had eased into a mist. She was halfway down the steps when a voice cut through the quiet. "You shouldn't be here this late, Miss Moon." She spun. A man in a charcoal trench coat leaned casually against a lamppost, but there was nothing casual about the way he looked at her. His eyes tracked her every movement, calm, calculating. "I'm just doing research," she said carefully. "For your friend's case?" The word friend was deliberate, meant to diminish. She didn't answer. "I'll give you one piece of advice," he said, pushing away from the lamppost. "Sometimes the truth isn't buried because it's forgotten. It's buried because digging it up gets people hurt." He walked past her, disappearing into the wet shimmer of the street. G.A. Young stood rooted for a long moment before moving again. The thread that unravels. At home, she laid out her notes beside Eun-woo's case file. 2 timelines, 36 years apart, but the beats were the same. 1. Anonymous tip leads to suspect. 2. Key witness with shaky credibility. 3. Physical evidence found too conveniently. 4. Rapid conviction. It was a formula. The question was, who wrote it? She searched online for Kim Jae-min. Most hits were obituaries or brief mentions of his conviction. But buried on page 6 of the results was a blog post from 2011, written by someone claiming to be his daughter. "My father never killed anyone. They needed someone to blame. They chose him." Her contact info was no longer active, but the post mentioned she still lived in Busan. 2 days later, G.A. Young found herself on a nearly empty KTX train. The scenery blurred past in streaks of green and gray. She hadn't told anyone where she was going, not even Eunwoo's lawyer. The address on the blog post led her to a quiet neighborhood where the ocean breeze carried a scent of salt and rusted metal. A woman in her 40s opened the door. She was cautious, eyes narrowing when Jia Young introduced herself. "I'm not here to cause trouble," Jia Young said quickly. "I'm here because I think what happened to your father is happening again." The woman hesitated, then stepped aside. They sat in a small kitchen that smelled faintly of broth and sesame oil. The woman, Ji Hai, spoke in a low, steady voice. "They said my father killed a man in his apartment building. But I remember that night. He came home early. He was with us when it happened. Why didn't that come out in court? Because no one listened. The police already decided. The witness, Oh Dae-sik, was friends with the victim. But also, my father owed money to someone powerful. After he was arrested, that debt disappeared." Jia Young's pen paused. "Disappeared?" Ji Hai nodded, like it never existed. By the time Jia Young boarded the return train, the picture was sharper and darker. Two men, decades apart, both accused of the same kind of evidence, both connected to debts or conflicts with people above the law, both abandoned by the system. She leaned back in her seat, the hum of the train a low static under her thoughts. If this was a pattern, Eunwoo's case wasn't just about clearing his name. It was about breaking something that had survived untouched for over 30 years. Back in Seoul, she requested restricted court archives under a false pretext. It was risky, but she needed more. What she found was worse than she'd feared. Several cases, 87, 94, 02, 09, 19, all followed the same structure. Different prosecutors, different judges, but the same shape. And in each case, the lead investigator was linked to a quiet division within the police force, one that didn't officially exist. The division's name was redacted. That night, Jia Young sat in her apartment surrounded by open folders, the city's lights a blur through a rain-streaked window. She had started this believing in Eunwoo's innocence. Now, she was starting to believe his arrest was never about him at all. It was about control, about showing that anyone could be taken down if the right story was told. The question wasn't, is he innocent? Anymore. The question was how many others were sacrificed to keep the machine running? And how do you fight something that's been perfecting its lies for decades? Her phone buzzed near midnight. The number was unknown. "You're close," a male voice said. She sat up. "Who is this?" "The 87 case. The 94 one. The 02. You're putting it together." "Then help me." Silence. "Then meet me tomorrow, 11 a.m., Gwangwaman. Come alone. And Jia Young, if you tell anyone this conversation never happened." The line went dead. The sound of rain in Seoul had always been background noise to Jia Young. Soothing, familiar. But tonight it was sharper, almost like static in her ears. She kept hearing the man's voice from outside the library. "It's buried because digging it up gets people hurt." The words followed her home, pacing her in the darkened streets. She spread the files on her dining table. Her apartment was small, but the neat order of her notes had always kept her mind steady. Not tonight. On the left, Eunwoo's case. Crisp photographs of evidence. Court transcriptions, medical examiner reports, all stapled and tagged. On the right, photocopies from the 87 Kim Jae-min case. Faded black and white images, smudged ink, yellowing paper. In the center, her notebook open to a page with 2 columns. She titled them, Similarities, Differences. Under Similarities, Witness Testimony with Conflicting Details. Physical evidence appearing too conveniently. Rapid movement from arrest to trial. Public opinion swayed within days. Under Differences, year, location, victim profile. That was it. Everything else lined up like a shadow cast by the same hand. Her pen tapped against the page. Whoever ran the 87 case, their playbook didn't change. Jia Young replayed her meeting with Ji Hai in her mind. The stillness of that small Busan kitchen. The way Ji Hai's hands never stopped moving. Fingers tracing the rim of her teacup. The moment that wouldn't leave her was when Ji Hai had leaned forward, her voice tightening. They didn't just take my father. They took the way people saw him. Even now, if I say his name, I see the judgment in their eyes. Jie Young had seen the same look aimed at Eun-woo in the courtroom. It wasn't just disbelief. It was a verdict passed long before the trial. The hours blurred. Jie Young was back in research mode, fingers flying across her laptop keys. She pulled every public record she could find, archived news articles, sentencing reports, even old police memos. Around 3 a.m., she stopped. On her screen, a faded group photo of Seoul's Investigative Division from 1987 stared back at her. Her eyes darted from face to face until she froze on one man. Sharp jawline, confident smile, a cigarette dangling carelessly from his hand. She knew that face, not from the past, but from last month, standing just outside the courthouse, talking to one of the prosecutors on Eun-woo's case. The next day, she returned to court. Eun-woo was there as always, head held high, expression unreadable. But she noticed something different. When the prosecution presented another key piece of evidence, a shirt with a faint trace of blood on the cuff, Eun-woo's lawyer protested. This was not in the original discovery. The judge overruled. Jie Young felt the air shift, the same way it had in the 87 transcript when Jae-min's defense had tried to exclude late-introduced evidence. Eun-woo's eyes found hers in the gallery. They didn't need words. She could see it. He knew this was more than a trial. It was a performance. That night, the rain returned, heavier than before. Jie Young was reviewing her notes when a knock echoed through her apartment. She hesitated. The clock read 11:42 p.m. Through the peephole, nothing. Then a voice. "You're not safe here." She swung the door open, but the hallway was empty. Only a small envelope lay on the floor. Inside, a single black and white photo of Kim Jae-min in handcuffs, flanked by 2 officers. On the back, in cramped handwriting, look at the detective's face. It was him, the man from the 87 photo, the man she'd seen by the courthouse. Jie Young's apartment felt smaller now, the shadows heavier. She pinned the photo on her wall, drawing a line to Eun-woo's case file. She added more photos, more clippings. Soon, her wall looked like something out of crime drama. Names, dates, red string connecting the decades. 5 cases, 5 different defendants. 5 convictions based on suspiciously similar evidence. The same man had appeared in 3 of them. The files didn't name his division, but she now had a face, a thread to pull. The phone call. It came again at midnight. "You've been busy," the male voice said. "You left the photo?" she asked. "I want you to see the truth, but you're not ready for all of it." "Then make me ready." A pause. "Tomorrow, Gwangwamun Square. 11 a.m. Don't be late. And Jie Young, bring nothing that can be traced." The line went dead. She didn't sleep. She sat in the dark, staring at the wall of cases. The rain painted thin rivers down her window, distorting the city lights. Every instinct told her this was dangerous, but every fiber of her being told her she was already too far in to turn back. If Eun-woo's case was just another entry in this decades-long script, then she wasn't just fighting for him. She was fighting for every name that had been buried in this machine. Her gaze